And so yet another addition into the hidden history of the African American warrior. You know, it just brought to my attention yesterday that February 1st was what, yesterday? Which is the beginning of African American History Month, which means that, well, let's put it this way, it is the month when the focus is on African American history by those who have not focused on it all this year. But I've got a suggestion to you for many of you who've listened and know how I start this show and have been for the last 9 months with African American warriors, particularly those who have fought for their freedom in this country, in that order. I would highly recommend, rather than coming up with the usual remembrances or memoirs of African Americans like Dr. Charlie Drew or Martin Luther King or Harriet Tubman or Jane Pittman, why don't you ask the eldest in your family their history? More particularly, I would highly recommend that you ask your mom, your grandmom, your auntie, which of your ancestors fought in the United States military. Really. Why don't you start there? How dare you know about Christopher Columbus in 1492 and not know that your grandfather served in the United States military? My father's father was Sandy Daniels Sr. He fought in World War I. His father was named Williams. Hadn't got his first name yet. He was at Vicksburg. My daddy, Sandy Daniels Jr., was inducted at in Hattiesburg, Camp Shelby, sent to Fort Polk, and released from the World War II there at Camp Shelby. In other words, when you learn about your own past, your own history, it empowers you. And it also dignifies those brave men and women that sacrifice so much for you. So instead of going, if your child comes to you and says, oh, it's African American History Month, Mom, and she comes up with this usual list, Booker T. Washington and Carver, and why don't you suggest to them that just maybe they need to learn about their Uncle L.C. Caldwell, or Roy Freitman, or a list of so many others, because they too represent the history of not only this country and the struggle of African Americans during African American History Month, but they represent the struggle of America. Got some books I could suggest to you, but by the way, you can pull up it if in fact you know that maybe one of your uncles, your granddads, or what have you were served in the United States military. It's as simple as going online and pulling up all the veterans of the United States military. It is as simple as that. I'm just telling you. And sometimes you can even break it down by the cities, certainly by the states and by the counties. I'd highly recommend it. Some of you have asked about books that I've mentioned here. Since it is African American History Month, here's one for you, The Soldiers of Freedom. I know it's going to be backwards when you see this. It's Soldiers of Freedom. Keep in mind it's a mirror image, so therefore it's going to be backwards. It's called Soldiers of Freedom. It's a K. Wright wrote it. It's incredible. It traces the struggles of especially the African American soldier going back to the beginning of this country. And of course, there's this one, Men of Color. It's very, very good. Very good illustration here. Very good. William Gladstone. Good. And then the Liberators. I often talk about the 761st Tank Battalion that spent more time in combat during World War II than any other tank battalion, and the most decorated tank battalion, African Americans. I'm just telling you. There's a book, Soldiers in Arms, written by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and another author, I can't think of his name. I'm currently finishing that book up. Very, very insightful, and it basically spells out how Patton depended upon the 761st Tank Battalion, the African American tankers, which, by the way, included one Jackie Robinson at one time, and the Brown Bummer, Joe Louis. All right, folks, let's get to it. A lot going on, short period of time. But there was something some breaking news that just took place that I was very pleased with. I'm going to get to the national chaos that's going on in the White House. I'll get to it. But this is near and dear to me because it is about family. It really is. You know, I've often said that the abuses of women and girls will stop when fathers protect their daughters like they praise their sons. Something happened somewhere in the 1980s, 70s, 80s, when men and fathers stopped defending the virtues of their daughters. Used to be the most protected creature in our society was that little girl. Now, of course, one can't argue that going back to the Salem witch hunts, but somewhere in the 1920s or so, you just didn't walk up on a man's daughter. You didn't just say things out of the way to his daughter, his wife, or any other woman. I'll tell you why, and it wasn't because it was against the law. It was because no other man, especially a male relative, would tolerate it. I mean, just to go in and see a girl, you had to go through her brothers. And heaven forbid you had to sit on the couch and get that evaluation from her daddy. I've done that a time or two. So somewhere we lost that. Hopefully we'll regain it. I do think that what just happened in the courtroom there regarding Larry Nassar, you know, I hate to use the term doctor, but that's what he was when he molested, what is he, 250 some odd girls now? Is it near? At this point, yeah. 300? He was a doctor for the Olympic team, the little tiny gymnast, going before him, and they found 37,000 child pornography trash on his computer. Heaven forbid what this guy has been doing under the guise of being a doctor and saying something sleazy like getting them in touch with their bodies. Well, there was a father just minutes ago in the courtroom as he had 3 daughters that went before this beast of a doctor. And this father wanted to have his say in court. And here's how it went.
Judge, would a distraught father have a chance to say something?
Go ahead, sir.
You son.
No, we don't want to swear. We don't want to have profanity. I can't imagine.
That's the judge.
Anger and the anxiety and the feeling of wanting retribution. And if you need to say something to help you, I'm more than willing to let you say something. But in a courtroom, we don't use profanity. But if you have some words that you would like to say, I would like to give you the opportunity to say them.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
I have
Would
a
you
feeling.
do that?
That is not how
Yes
our.
or
No, sir, I can't.
Would you give me 1 minute?
You know that I can't do that. That's not how our legal system.
Well, I'm going to have to get something.
So now he's lunging toward Nessier. Officers are responding and pinning him to the floor. All right. I only play that to demonstrate what needs to happen. I know that's violence in the courtroom, and I don't advocate that, but there was a one time, ladies and gentlemen, when the greatest fear you had when it came to molesting a little girl or saying something out of the way, as would be said, was not law enforcement, it was the father. And needless to say, this dad was around when 3 of his daughters were molested. How one could ask, how did this happen? Well, you have a doctor, and the doctor gave some explanations. You got a father who wants to support his daughters. And when you're dealing with a little girl, how would they know? How could this beast get away with that, one would ask? Well, it is refreshing for me. Although I don't advocate it, it is refreshing for me to see a father, at the very least, risk life and limb to defend the honor of his daughter. Because I'm going to tell you, that's what's going to keep the demons, as he called them, in check. What keeps that little boy, that older guy, from attempting to sneak off with your son or daughter is his concept or fear of a revenge by the relatives. And again, I'm not advocating vigilante. I'm not. But mores used to be a whole lot stronger than laws. There were things you just did not do. You know, when I went through the market there in Arusha, Tanzania, I asked my guide, I was going through this very crowded market, and they do it every day, well, every other day, especially on the weekends. I mean, they put up tents. I mean, millions of people spread out all over the town there, and it's incredible. You're selling everything from toilet bowls to sandals. But everything is out in the open, bro. There's no racks. You know, you go by, you see the glasses, shades just hanging, and you think to yourself, somebody could just walk up and grab something.
Yeah.
I asked my guide, so you have a problem with people stealing here? Because someone could just walk up and grab something.
Right.
No, Rip, no problem with that. There's a fear of mob violence.
Oh, well.
He would not make it out of here. No, really.
No, really.
I mean, that, and that's that. I mean, he was very matter of fact about it.
Yeah.
He made it very, very clear that you know, the stealing and doing something wrong like that,
Not tolerated.
it's just not tolerated. That's what I mean when I say mores. The morals of a society says, look, no, you won't get away with that. If anything, you'll be calling for law enforcement to save you. So I'm not advocating it. I'm not. But at the very least, there's got to be some concept that every father, every brother, every uncle will defend that little girl. Or else you're going to find beasts just like this. Speaking of which, I understand there was an execution. So I've got to do my duty to make sure that you are aware. But actually, there were 3 executions. You missed 2, Ro.
I did.
I want to start first with the last one, which happened last night, because it is about this father, and I use the term loosely, killing his daughters. John David Battaglia was sentenced to death, and he was, in fact, put to death. We're going to give you the grisly details. But first, you got to hear what this man did. You got to hear this. Here is what he thought he'd do to get back at his wife. On the evening there in May 2001, Battaglia was scheduled to have dinner with the 2 girls when police informed him that he was violating probation and needed to surrender. Well, a few seconds later, Miss Purley said she heard her daughter... Well, hang on. When the girls arrived at his Dallas apartment, now you understand, he wasn't supposed to have it. The police informed him, but nevertheless, he had the girls at his apartment. When the girls arrived at his Dallas apartment, he called his wife, put her on the speakerphone. Her daughter Faith asked, "Mommy, why do you want Daddy to go to jail?" A few seconds later, Miss Purley, the wife and mother, ex-wife I might add, said she heard her daughter say, "No, Daddy, please don't. Don't do it." Then Miss Purley heard gunshots and screams. The girls were found dead in Battaglia's apartment after being shot multiple times. According to court documents, he went to a bar with his girlfriend after killing the little girls. That's not all. He was later arrested. Where? At a tattoo parlor, where he indicated he was having roses tattooed on him to remember his babies. It took the jury, by the way, his daughter, 6 years old, Liberty, and Faith was 9 years old. It took the jury 20 minutes to convict him back in 2002. Experts said he was suffering from delusional disorder of the, persecutory type, whatever that is. We actually do have this guy on the telephone talking to his wife, or ex-wife.
I just talked to a reporter.
So, and he was asked whether or not he had killed the girls, and he said no.
Well, he says, "I feel like I didn't do it. I feel like I didn't kill them."
Certainly not protecting his daughters. So, his Miss Purley, his ex-wife, showed up, to which he taunted her by saying, "Well, hi, Mary Jane." His last words, "See y'all later." Go ahead, please. Well, and they started with the procession. However, that wasn't enough. After the lethal injection was administered, he closed his eyes several moments and then opened them, smiled, and said, "I'm still alive." What do you do with a person like that?
Kill him?
So they continued. Then he suddenly said, "Oh, here, I feel it." And then he gasped and started to snore. After 20 minutes, Battaglia was pronounced dead. To which his ex-wife said, "I've seen enough of him." So,
You don't know what Texas wasted on this monster, feeding him before he was killed?
well, they never just give the usual, right?
They do, but they've made it a point to actually say now what the basic menu was for that day. Texas no longer does special meal requests.
No last meals. Well, you get a last meal, but you don't get your choice.
No special last meals in Texas.
Should have been nails.
No.
No.
Chicken patty, mashed potatoes and country gravy, green beans, corn, cornbread, choice of tea, punch, or water to drink.
Killed his 2 daughters, 6 and 9 years old. All right, give him the bail. Well, yeah, I would say a 1 bailer. There were 2 other executions. This year just began.
Yeah, but Texas don't play when it comes to killing folks. So at the
Not killing or executing. He just killed these 2 girls. Now, he was executed.
Well,
There is a difference.
Well, but he was dead afterwards.
Well, he was dead, but the point is,
I'm not
he wasn't murdered.
I appreciate that he was
The
killed.
way he went out with a smile. His babies were begging for their lives, bro.
Yeah, he should have been shot like he shot
I'm
him.
still alive.
Monster. Peanut barbertone.
This is what he looks like here, folks. This is what he looks like. That's his face. Look at that. That's the face. Now, if by chance the baby, your daughter has a father who looks similarly, watch him closely.
At the middle of January, Anthony Shore was killed. Anthony Shore was known as the tourniquet killer. He was granted a last-minute stay just hours before his planned execution back in October of 2017, but time has run out for him. He was dubbed the tourniquet killer because he strangled his way through victims with handmade tourniquets. He was convicted and sentenced to death in 2004. The prosecutor said he confessed to the murders of 4 females ranging in age from ranging in age from 9 years old to 21 years old between the years
He
of
confessed to killing 9 females?
4,
4 females.
ranging from ages 9 to 21.
9 to 21.
Between 86 and 95.
You got a picture of this guy?
I will find one. I don't have one handy here. His last meal was nothing special either. Also in Texas, also given a chicken.
And he wasn't. This happened earlier this year.
This was in the middle of January.
So, any last words on this guy?
I do not have any last words.
Give him a bail or whatever. What's the other one? Geez.
This last individual killed his girlfriend, allegedly.
All of these are girls.
These are female
This
killers.
is why, ladies and gentlemen, I opened the show the way I did with his father, rushing Dr. Nasser.
In defense. 64-year-old William Rayford was convicted in 1999 for murdering his ex-girlfriend. He was put to death on January 30th with also lethal injection of peanut barbital. His last meal was also
Well, whatever.
pasta.
What was his last word?
No last words for Raymond either.
He killed his girlfriend, so he's happy.
He's
That's what this kind of like.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. His last words, he did have last words. He says, "I'm sorry. It's been bothering me for a long time. Tell my kids I'm sorry for being a disappointment. I'm ready."
Well, wait a minute. Now, he killed the mother of his children?
No, he just says he killed his ex-girlfriend, not necessarily the mother of his children.
I'll find out.
It was, however, he says that his trial was tainted by racial prejudice, but his time is well ran out.
Well, I mean, he says he's sorry. Does that indicate it's racial prejudice? But nevertheless, he killed his girlfriend. So I'm.
Yeah, he had multiple last-minute appeals, and one of his claims was racial prejudice in the trial for killing 44-year-old Carol Hall in '99.
All right, give him whatever. So we've got 3 executions. Hopefully that will. I really sincerely wish this. It will, in fact, serve as a deterrent for those of you who are contemplating killing little girls and women, especially anyone, particularly, but so there we have it in our great society called the Great Old USA. All right, 228-896-9455. Before this morning is over, you're going to hear from someone who's at the Super Bowl, I hope. A local girl who actually won tickets. How about that?
Awesome.
Sweet little thing. Let's see. And, of course, then there's the tweeting. I guess let me tell you where we are right now. And I'm going to go to you guys on the phone, I promise you. Hang in. Where we are right now is the theater that Donald John has created. And it is unfortunate that we in America are now playing in this very serious reality show. Because it is for keeps. We've got one guy in this great country of mine who is now undermining the fabric of this country. Not only from the press, but now when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to intelligence, this guy, I guarantee you, in the next crosshairs is going to be the military. I promise you that. That is the perfect storm for Vladimir Putin. Listen, if any other administration or any other person running for governor, dog catcher, or whatever had as much infiltration from the Russians as this guy, don't you know he has to have surveillance? It is not political with the FBI here. It is about, wait a minute, here's a guy who was dealing with the highest echelons of our enemy. And, I mean, even Ivanka. I mean, there's too many connections here. And he's denying those connections. And had he not denied the connections, it'd be a different story.
Right.
Had he not been forthcoming and said, yes, I wrote the letter for my son as they met with the Russians there and wanted to get some dirt on Hillary. And yes, I met with, I got Manafort. Manafort's now my chief strategist for my campaign. And then he was working with the oligarchs. Had he come forward instead of denying it. You see, there's one thing I know about law enforcement officers. Let me just tell you. But don't ask me how I know this. I know this. For them, the suspicion starts with the first lie. If you ask any great law enforcement officer, any good detective, once you lie, then that means you're afraid. And you're afraid of something, which is the truth. And that's what this is all about. So now, Donald John has made the theater. He promoted that there's a memo. Nunez accommodate, let's put together a memo in hopes of. And yeah, now it is about, the FBI supported Hillary and the Russians supported me. I think the Russians and me should win. Is that what you're saying to me, America? Because if you are, this is a different kind of America. But the theater is all about, coining the story. And he's doing that. Whether you know it or not, this whole, Apprentice, that was all contrived. He's doing this right now. He is doing a good job of manipulating. And there's no genius about it. It is a willing participant, a willing audience that's really urged on by oxyconservative talk radio. I guarantee you. These guys are out going, yeah, there's the deep state, and yeah, the FBI, the highest echelons, and everybody at the top. Now, you got to understand this. Everyone at the top he appointed, including Jeff Sessions, Rosenstein. He chose the last FBI director.
Or as a member of his party, including Mueller.
Pompeo. What he's doing is following the directions of Vladimir Putin and undermining the fabric of this country and causing doubt where it shouldn't be. When we start doubting our government, we'll end up in a Rwanda, and that is a civil war. I'm telling you, folks. And we're allowing it to happen. However, all Mueller has to do is follow the directions of one Comey who says the weasels, where is it? All should appreciate the FBI speaking up. I wish more of our leaders would. But take heart, American history shows that the long-run weasels and liars never hold the field, so long as good people stand up.
All right.
Not a lot of schools or streets named for Joe McCarthy. Just saying. He's on it. He's on it. Folks, let me just tell you, there's no protection for Hillary. Prosecute whoever. But don't let this guy change the subject. Don't let Donald John seek to, let's see.
Write the script.
Well, he's writing the script, mind you, but it's all four calls. Seek to discredit what is being done to show his criminal activity. I'm going to suggest to you that that's where we are. There's no doubt in my mind. If any American, Rip Daniels or anyone else, were to have the flagrant relationships, well, spies, even within Trump Tower, you do understand that it's some 11 Russians, most of which were hanging out in Trump Tower. You do understand how close that is, who was living in the penthouse. I mean, it's unconscionable that we're allowing it, and we are. So supposedly the memo is going to be released. Release it. Let me tell you what a memo is. For those of us who've worked in an executive capacity, it is your description of what just happened. And an employee can give a description of how and why they were fired, and you give a description, right? That's a memo. You got a memo to the file. Here it is. And so you take those memos out and you compare them. Somewhere down the line, there's an explanation. There's an explanation. And here you have now the president, he has changed the whole discussion, and now he is manipulating, media particularly, to believe that the memo is going to be the telling factor. That is evidence number one.
Really?
That's just bull. The evidence is sitting there with Mulder. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, we've gotten information to suggest that Paul Manafort's attorneys is possibly seeking to withdraw from his case because they suspect a plea deal coming from Paul Manafort. Let me just tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Or what web we weave when first we practice to deceive. What is happening now is the person at the very top, as did one Tricky Dick Nixon, began to squirm. Got to get rid of some people. That's what happened. Same identical thing. We want to put it off. So Donald John then calls out at his tweets. I don't do the tweets. You read the tweets, Ro. Basically, what is he saying? Oh, yeah, well, this is going to exonerate him. That, okay, it shows that the entire FBI was against him. I'm sure.
Top leadership and investigators of the FBI and the Justice Department have politicized the sacred investigative process in favor of Democrats and against the Republicans, something which would have been unthinkable just a short time ago.
Yeah,
Rank
right.
and file are great people.
Yeah, right. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. What this is about is not politics for the FBI. I can tell you that right now. I know a whole lot of people in the FBI. And what these guys are, I don't care who they are. It could be Stroke or whatever his name was. What they're about is one most important thing, and it's the oath they took to defend the Constitution. That's it. And when they feel that there is a threat, get this, to the rule of law and to this country, I'm going to tell you something. They don't have any friends. I'm just telling you. And for those oxy-conservatives listening to oxy-conservative talk radio to even begin to think that, it makes me question your patriotism here. And it's not to say that FBI can't do anything wrong. They can. They can do something wrong. And they will investigate themselves. They do. Have done a pretty decent job of it. But what we're talking about here is someone trying to manipulate the process. There is a process. There is a process. When someone tries to manipulate the process whereby they are being investigated, meaning Donald John and his entourage, then it gives some pause here. You've got to ask yourself why. Now he's suggesting you won't sit down and talk to Mueller. You actually have individuals who are going along with this. They're in Congress. Oh, yes, Ryan is suggesting we need to shine the light of day on it. Okay, well, then let's just expose all of it, including the FISA court documents that show why there was a need to investigate one of Donald John's boys, who was, by the way, going back and forth to Russia and dealing with a known spy. Really?
After the expulsion of spies from this country.
You got to understand this, folks. There is a track record here. A serious track record. And you could God fearing Americans, if by chance you find yourself in an environment with a wrongdoer or someone who's already under investigation or surveillance, guess what? There's good reason for FBI, CIA, or anyone else to question, well, so why are you with this shady character? We need to watch you. Especially when it persists since 2013 and you come out and you lie about it. Something's wrong here. Just talk to anyone in law enforcement. And some of you guys, I know, you support Donald John. That's political. But ask yourself, is this guy behaving? Is this guy behaving like an innocent man, like he does not have something to hide? Who does this? Who asks whether he can pardon himself? Who does that? Or
who'd you vote for?
Or goes in and fires another American and brags about it in front of the Russians, thinking that that would not get out. Who does that? And then who fires the top cop of the United States in such a flagrant way? Let him read it on the news. Who does that except someone who is trying to manipulate this system? Hang on. We'll be back.
It's about that time to get away. Make your reservations, pack your bags, and head